Yes, and so to Belfast. And Maria, of course, was introduced and was an immediate hit with all the Nixons and my friends. Nobody could really understand how I had managed to catch such a gem. We were fortunate to have very good spring weather that year, although Maria kept complaining that it was too frio, cold. Mum set to work, trying to teach herself Spanish and also teach Maria English. Post-its were placed all over the house with the names of things in English for Maria's benefit and Spanish for the benefit of Mum. We had a big party at Robin Hill and invited all my friends. Not many, but many of Mum and Dad's friends. Everyone was captivated by Maria, and I basked in her adulation. We travelled all over Northern Ireland and showed Maria around. She even met Auntie Marjorie, that's Dad's sister. I had a very small family. The Nixons are a small biological family. And we included 2 spinster aunts. So the Nixons are not prolific. Thank God I can hear some of my friends murmur. Even though she was well looked after, Maria was very tired soon, coping with all the language and the new culture. Indeed, she also had to cope with becoming pregnant almost immediately. I worked briefly for a neighbour erecting glass conservatories while I applied for teaching jobs wherever. Africa, wherever. This was another favour Dad did for me, the working in the glass conservatories, which of course I failed to acknowledge at the time. Marie started to learn English and made good progress. Thanks to the Times Educational Supplement, by June, we'd only arrived in April, I had 2 interviews lined up. One in London for Brunei. Brunei, yes, Brunei Darussalam, if you haven't heard of it. I hadn't heard of it at the time. But this had a superb financial package as a science officer. I didn't even know where Brunei was. So I got out the atlas. It seemed a bit far away for me. The other job offer was in Belfast, or not job offer, but it was an interview, was in Belfast with an Irishman, Jack. And he was the rector of the Colegio Colombo Británico in Cali, Colombia. The job was as a biology teacher, and the interview went very well. At the end of it, well, I think Jack, you see, was a ex-volunteer from Nigeria, West Africa, where I'd been. I think that's what he saw as the connection. He saw me as someone with a light mind. And indeed we were at that level. Anyway, at the end of the interview, Jack asked me if I would be interested in becoming his vice-rector. Well, I just couldn't believe it. I mean, this greatly appealed to my vanity, of course, so I immediately said that I would. but I had absolutely no idea what the job would entail. The money was, of course, hopeless, not good at all. But in those days I was still an idealist, and I was happier with the idea of Maria having her first baby in Colombia, a Spanish-speaking environment that would be familiar to her culturally rather than Borneo, and that's where Brunei was, about which I knew nothing at all. The offer of vice-rector, of course, clinched it for me, seduced, like everyone else, by ambition for the first, but probably not the last time. I realized that it was easier to get a British marriage certificate than to go through the bureaucracy of getting originals from Mexico of our Mexican marriage. Such was and still is the power of the white colonial culture. Of course, in addition, my parents wanted to have what they perceived to be a real marriage, that is, one in which they could participate and invite their friends to. So, Maria and I were married for a third time in Belfast, if you include the real marriage, in our swimming trunks. David Crawford was my best man. It was such fun, and life was a breeze in those days. In spite of her popularity, Maria would sometimes cry at night out of homesickness. Mostly for her mum, I think. I was determined she would be happy in spite of her homesickness.